Whoop, and there we go with the butt shots. So yeah, putting the sound insulation on, I'm going to be covering essentially everything that goes under the seats and to your feet. So out they come, really simple. It's 13 millimeter bolt holding them down. It's like 4 bolts per seat. They come right out. The floor, I had kind of made my own carpets, so that literally just kind of pulled out. Nothing complicated about that. The only thing to do once you take everything out is to do a really good job cleaning so that the soundproofing material can actually adhere to the metal. This is going to be one of those areas where you really want to focus on, because whether you're doing this to make the ride quieter or to make your sound system sound better, the door skins are like a big metal drum. The metal's not super thick, so it resonates a lot. And you want to peel back that vapor barrier and get the material up against that inside surface. Get as much of it as you can in there. I ended up doing, the flat surface you can see and some of the bottom channel of the door, if you will. And whether you just want your sound system to sound better or just make the ride quieter, this is one of those areas where you can make big improvement. What on earth are those? Yeah, that's some roll-up windows, and if you've got an old car, man, I don't even know. Do they come off the same way? Mine are just held on by a C-clip. I mean, essentially the only part you need to know is you're going in between the handle and that little plastic shroud, and you end up I used the dentist pick. I caught one end of the metal of the prong. See, watch me go here. Eep, and I just popped that thing off. So you probably don't have that, but if you do, that's how you go about it. Literally the worst time lapse ever. Now that you've gotten those handles off, though, you can use some type of, this is a piece of plastic I have no clue what this used to be. It does say Volkswagen on it, but it's just like a big plastic butter knife type thing, and there are little rivet or little trim things, and you're literally just going to go around and very carefully pop all of them out, and this door card will be off. All right, breaking out the vacuum. So yeah, I just vacuumed up all the dirt and things that collect, and then I either used denatured alcohol or, to be honest with you, I used Fabuloso cut with water for 90% of the truck. I mean, inside the doors was just so dirty. The floor is so dirty. I just wanted to use something I could spray a ton of and not have to, think about it too much. And I'll give you a little teaser. This whole process made a huge difference in my truck, but individual results are going to vary. This truck had no interior to begin with, so it's pretty obvious that putting some soundproofing in a vehicle that started with 0 is going to make a huge difference. If you have a vehicle that has like some factory installed or carpeting, sound dampening, you're not going to see as huge of a difference, but I still think this is pretty worthwhile if you're really into a quiet ride. There's no interior in the truck, and it is fully covered in ice. There's even ice on the tires. Wow, this video literally taking months in the making. It's finally slightly warmer, and it's enough for me to start laying in these panels. So I just got the first little section done. It's pretty tedious, but it's going in nicely. Looks pretty decent, especially on camera, and I'm just gonna keep chopping away at it. So here we are in like an intermediate stage. As you're laying down the material, you got to think of the things you don't want to cover up. So the bolt holes that hold down the seats, or in my case, I had little like drain plug holes. I left the ones on the floor open and covered up the ones on the seats. I have those little bolts that the carpet goes down to, and you'll see on my K-Truck, there's not a single piece of flat metal. I mean, literally every single section has some type of curvature to it, so it was getting a little difficult to use full-size panels. I was ending up having to cut them into smaller rectangles and just go smaller sections at a time. That's where the roller I used really came in handy, because I could place the material down and then just place a lot of weight and just get it to really suck into, those parts that it's like a channel or the curvature going down into the floor. The big takeaway here was, because I don't have carpet, I wanted to do full coverage because it's going to kind of be the look of the floor. But in terms of making the product work, 100% coverage would be great, but it's maybe not realistic. I did as much material in the door, like take a look. So I've kind of got from the full left to right, I've got a nice thick panel in there, but getting way up into the corners of the door, I mean, for me, just wasn't possible. The edges on that metal were so sharp, I was cutting up my hands like crazy. And one of the things I'm pointing out in this video is save all the little end cuts you make, because you'll end up using them. You'll end up placing them in little areas, or in my case on the doors, I kind of weighted down that outside surface, like the secondary surface of the door, and any material you can get on there will make a difference. So save those end bits, and especially pieces like little rectangles and little squares. You'll end up with a spot where you're going to want to make a little patch. So it's a little hot tip for you. And you can see, if you zoom in, you can see there's overlap. There's like little sections. Again, when I first started, I wanted it to all be perfect. And then very quickly, I realized I just want it to be on there. And so, yeah, who knows? In the end, I might take tape and cover over that. I might just leave it. I don't think it's that important. And if you did care about the look, the product I'm using, one side is, you see, like there's an overlap. So if I really cared, that's the side you would put over the overlap. And then when you're finished, it kind of lays down flat and it makes it look seamless. And I, at some point, just stopped caring. So anyway, back to work. This is the stuff I've been using. Vibro Solutions. This is the 2 millimeters, or I think they call that, well, I don't think they call it anything. That's the 2 millimeter kit. I have used 2 boxes for the K-Truck, and I'm going to end up having plenty of material left over. This was the only sound insulation product I found that was made in the USA, and the sheets look something like this. So you can kind of see it's like a very tacky rubber. I'll peel a little back so you can take a look. Tacky rubber, very good adhesive. There's some foil in there, and it's got no logos on it, no nothing, just black. When you press it down real flat, you still see a little bit of that square shape, but for the most part, it it lays down. You can see on the floor, like from a distance, it really looks pretty good, and I'm really happy with it. It's really easy to cut into the shape. Having the squares here makes it easy when you use the scissors. You can cut nice straight lines if that's your goal. And like I mentioned before, one side of the product does have a little overlap with the foil, so if the finish quality were something you really cared about, you can lay that on the overlapping sections, and then it'll just fold over nice. There's no adhesive on that foil, but I think that's why they have it like that. This is a lot more money than some of the other kits, so some of the stuff you can find, Killmat or any of that product, it's much cheaper. I think this was $130 or just about $130 a box. I've gotten 2 of them now, so that's $260. But made in USA. A lot of the other stuff comes from Russia or China. This is also a pretty essential piece of kit. I'll put a link in the video description. I could have used more than one roller, just because, particularly in the K-Truck, you get into a lot of parts where you just need something smaller, something less wide. But this roller has ball bearings in it, so you can really lay down and just like put all your weight. And that's essentially the technique I use, is I just like with all my weight into this thing and I just roll it really hard. So that's been a really awesome bit. I wouldn't try to do it with a cheap roller, and I also probably wouldn't get a roller that's metal and has the grooves in, because it's going to leave the grooves in the product. And again, like, it looks pretty good when it's just laid flat like that. and it doesn't look very good. You know, even if I use the handle and kind of drag it, it doesn't look nearly as good. So that's that. Of course, a nice pair of scissors. I mean, pretty essential, but I don't have to tell you that. When you're doing this, you end up with a lot of just odd ends and shapes, and these are great. Like when I did the doors, I used big panels on the inside, but for any area of the door that's sunken in, that, you know, would be a gap between where the door panel is going to go, I take those random shapes and I just place them. If you think about this like a drum, any amount of material you put on the metal is going to deaden the sound. So you don't need 100% coverage in terms of like the sound dampening. Obviously, if you can, that's great, but it's not necessary. Even little bits like this, if you know anything about, like, if you've seen a drum where they put those little rubber bits on the head of the drum to muffle the sound, any little bit you can get on there is going to help. And so save all your end pieces. There's plenty of areas in the truck where, you know, like a small little piece, you're going to end up using it. Okay, so real quick, before I pop all the interior in, I'm just going to show you what the finished product looks like. So the materials on the inside of the door, inside of the door in deep, I went and did the floor, a little bit of that panel, all of this. I ended up covering up that full cross member there, whatever you call this piece. You can see under the driver's seat, coming down into the footwell. And then a little bit of that area as well. I did those little door pocket areas. And now I'm going to pop the interior in. All right, so obviously this is going to be a little hard to quantify, like how quiet it is. I'm not using like a decibel reader or anything like that. But I will say right off the bat, with the doors closed, it's remarkable. Like even the sound of my own voice inside the cab, it just sounds different. Here's kind of a shot with the interior back in. I put my carpeting back in. I mean, you guys kind of know what one of these trucks with the interior looks like. But I am now going to, I got a new timing light and I got a vacuum gauge, and it is warmer now, so I'm going to do a little carburetor adjustment. So I need to get the truck warmed up, but it's already running. And let's just take it for a little drive, see what everything sounds like. You can probably hear my backup alarm. We're still kind of, you know, full cold here, so I'm not going to push it too hard. You are going to hear my tools rattling around. That maybe wasn't the best thing to add to the video. It's just the sound going over the bumps. It's way quieter. Bumps used to sound hard. It sounded almost like the truck was not braking, but like metal on metal contact with the ground. I thought I needed to take air out of my tires. Everything is just really smooth and kind of muted now. Everything is a lower pitched thud. And again, the sound of my voice, I mean, you know, if I talked in the truck before, it didn't sound different, but now I really notice I can hear things differently. I still have the stock AM radio, so I don't have a way of testing the sound system, but this made a huge difference. Here, hold on. That's all the way up to 6,000. I mean, this thing is a pretty smooth operating vehicle now. I mean, it's pretty great. And I don't just think that's because it's warmer and things have kind of softened up. That's what having, you know, probably 15 pounds of rubber over all the metal will do to everything that used to boom around and, you know, just resonate inside this truck. So honestly, 2 thumbs up. I'd recommend this to anyone. if you want to quiet down your van and just make it more enjoyable to drive, I think this is an awesome mod. Like I said, if you use the product I did, it was a little pricey, maybe like, you know, I probably spent like $260 and then plus the roller, but you know, whatever, really seemed worth it to me. I like it when my truck is quiet and smooth, and this has been the most significant upgrade I've ever done to it. It's awesome. Really happy with that. Really happy with that. Please go, lady. Wow. It's amazing how bad the drivers are here. Like, such basic driving maneuvers totally overwhelms people. Really phenomenal. That's a really bumpy road with a rattling set of sockets in here, and still, this is nice and quiet. Okay, thanks for watching. Stay tuned.